Welcome to the Clarity Games with your hosts Lynn, Elaine, and Greg. Let's welcome today's contestant, our special guest, Lorraine. Now let's play some Clarity Games. So this one's called Unicorns and Fairies. So for 2 to 3 minutes, player one, which is you, Lorraine, imagine something impossible they'd love to have happen, like a big dream or fantasy. So that's the unicorns and fairies part. Like this is, it's out there. It's impossible. And then for 15 minutes, all other players have a conversation about what they're curious about or want to know or want clarification on. They agree to one question to ask player one and then ask it. Player one answers, and the other players do another round of discussing and ask another question. And this repeats for 15 minutes. And then at the end, for 2 to 3 minutes, player one shares any insights or shifts that they've had. Sound good?
Sounds good. Yeah, I'm thinking now.
So, Greg, can I just clarify? Actually,
Absolutely.
do we actually, is the whole discussion 15 minutes? In the midst of 15 minutes, we ask.
Yeah, the rounds of questions last for about 15 minutes. Yeah,
perfect.
So the three of us will come up with what is it that we're curious about or want to ask. We'll agree on a question. Of course, Lorraine gets to sit like a fly on the wall and listen to all our banter back and forth. But then we'll come to her with one question, and then we'll see where it goes for the rest of the round. All right, so Lorraine, what's something impossible that you'd love to have happen?
Let's go with doing a year trip around the world by bike with my family. So that's something that we've kind of talked about in but we're never going to do that kind of thing. We all ride bikes. Jules is my partner. When we met by cycling through cycling club, and it's very much part of our lives. And it is something that we've, as I said, kind of talked about, but with we're probably never going to do that kind of thinking behind it. Taking a year the kids out of school, like what would that look like? We both think the experience that they would have would 100-fold kind of be worth it for the potential, because I don't think it would be a loss, but potential loss seen by eyes of maybe even educational bodies, I don't know, but would be greater for doing that. But finances would be something that I'd see as a drawback and worry. But yeah, that could be my big dream or fantasy of going with the family for a year, and maybe not around the world, but just taking the year to be the change that we want to see. That you don't have to go by aeroplane. You could, well, at some points we would need to, but we could be kind of self-sufficient. I don't know.
Sounds terrific. All right, so I'll start the 15-minute timer here, and let's come in. What are you guys curious about?
Well, I guess the obvious thing to me is that if the financial worries and the concern around the kids being taken out of school were out of the way, what would be the first step?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's a very well-formed, detailed vision of something. Like it's like, all that's left to do is to do it. It's so I'm curious what's there was a couple reasons or excuses I heard, but I'm curious what is it that's actually getting in the way of doing this?
Yeah, mine would have been either yours or Lynn's. I'd have asked exactly the same thing. Yeah. I kind of wonder what it's like. I know this is not an I wonder game, but however, I'm wondering what it must be like to have such a vivid and felt, vision for sort of this wonderful dream to come true. and at the same time be living with all the drawbacks like the finances and, you know, well, is it really the best thing for the kids, that kind of thing, but living in this sort of double situation, you know, of like, oh, I really want to go because I can feel it, like she really wants to go. You know, it's like, oh, it's so alive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just building off what you just said, Elaine, the thing that came to my mind of being curious about is, like we just got a sense for Lorraine's feeling around this idea. I wonder what Jules is feeling and her kids feeling. Like, is this something they all share in, or is it more her dream and not their dream? So I'm curious about that too.
Yeah.
Anyway, we gotta figure out one question. What was your question again, Lynn?
I don't know. Something around if the what looked to be obstacles are taken out of the way, the finances, the concern around taking the kids out of school, if that was out of the way, what would be the first step? But actually I like yours better, which was the what's actually getting in the way.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So Lorraine, our question for you is, you know, you talked about finances and taking the kids out of school, but you know, is that really what's getting in the way of you doing this, or is there something else actually getting in the way?
Interesting. Is there something else actually getting in the way? Possibly believing that it's actually, well, I know that it's possible because obviously I know that people have done it and I've seen it and read about it and watched things about it. But I think going back to what you'd mentioned, Greg, about is the whole family on board. It's something that certainly Jules and I have talked about, not recently, and it's been kind of in the past years when the children were a bit younger. And at that time we mentioned it to the kids because actually one of their school friends did a trip on a boat around the world for a year, so it was something that, you know, was feasible. And I don't know what their feeling would be now at this point in time, a few years down the line. So whether that could be something that is that's not the finances, is not the school removal, could be, is everybody definitely on board? Is it something as a whole family that we want and believe in? I think because that conversation, as I said, hasn't happened recently, so that could definitely be something. So,
just for context, how old are the kids?
Carlo is 10 and Sophia is 8.
Okay.
Yeah, so grade 3 and grade 5. Yeah.
The reason I ask is, you know, my kids are 20 and 18, that they're at the age now where my wife and I can say, well, fine, you don't want to come, then we're going without you.
Yeah. Yeah, they're not there yet, thankfully.
No.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. I think that, because I've chosen that as something because it was the first thing that came into my mind. I thought, actually, yeah, that used to be something that I was really wanted to do and do, and just do something that is not in the norm. We've talked about that a lot, so that kind of came to mind, of taking the kids out of school and doing something really different. Yeah.
All right.
I would still like to dig deeper onto the well, both the idea like really, if finance wasn't a problem and the kids out of school weren't a problem, like what exactly is your answer there? Like what is actually stopping you? Because I didn't really hear the answer.
So knowing that everybody's on board, knowing that it's definitely something as a family that we want.
Yeah,
so
and you've got no money problems.
Right. So okay, so my answer to that question was that knowing everybody's on board. So let's now say, that everybody is. There's no money problems. Don't need to worry about school. Then what is stopping me. Then at that point, there's nothing stopping us. If I know that everybody's on board, and I know that finance isn't an issue, and I know that the schooling isn't an issue, which I know all that anyway, then there would be nothing stopping us. There'd be nothing stopping us from doing it at that point. As I say that, potentially thinking about my mum, who's getting older, and thinking about where that would maybe just affect where we would choose to go, and not maybe go around the whole planet and ended up in somewhere that was close enough to come back. Yeah.
I'm curious if even in the last 7 minutes, it's looking a lot more possible than it was 7 minutes ago.
Yeah. I guess
Not to delegitimize what Lorraine just said about supporting her mom and stuff, but it seemed like a stretch to kind of what other thing can I grab onto that is a consideration, because really no matter where you are in the world, I mean you can be back home in 48 hours in an emergency if you had to. At great expense, I'm sure, but it's possible. I'm really curious. It's funny because here in Canada, March break starts next week. So today is supposed to be the last day of school before the break. And my son, who just turned 18 in his adulthood, has decided not to go to school today. So he's taking an extra day for March break. But we were having a conversation about this because my daughter, who's older than him, we never let her take time off. Like she'd be like, okay, it's the last day of school and no one else is going. Why do I have to go? And we're like, no, it's a school day. You have to go. Like we were kind of, I don't know, really strict about, going because like the teachers are going to be there, like, and the teachers used to joke and say like, your parents must really hate you. Like, why are you here? And since COVID, my attitude towards all that is kind of changed. That it's like, I'm much more flexible. So like, the idea when you mentioned about taking them out of school for a year, like, not to say that kids haven't missed out or gone backwards because of not being in school for a year, but when it wasn't our choice, we were able to do it. So a bike ride around the world sounds like a lot more fun reason to take a year off school than COVID. So like one thing we know for sure is kids can take a year off school. It's not the end of the world. At least that's my sense of it now, having been through that experience. I'm curious, Lorraine, what your sense
you
of
guys
that?
Yeah, no, I'm totally, thank you very much. I'm totally on board with that. And as I think I said, as in the introduction of it, like I think that the experiences that they were had and the learning, the real life learning they would have would outweigh what they would be getting in school. So, and being a teacher myself, there'd be things that I would be able to do with them to make up the things that maybe they were missing. That was in a more, if it was preparing for tests or whatever it was when they got back, we'd have that covered. So that definitely isn't. I think they were just words that came out of my mouth. I don't think that is, and it probably came from the, what would others maybe think? Possibly, I don't know, but that wouldn't stop it. That wouldn't be a stopper for it for sure. But at the moment, we're playing with a magic wand with the finances. So how? My question is there, like, yeah, in ideal world where finance isn't an issue. I mean, we wouldn't have to pay rent on our house because we wouldn't be renting a house at that point. So, but neither would we be having any, we wouldn't have any income. But again, there are ways around that as well. And there are different things that you can do and places that you can stay that don't cost money. So yeah, it would be possible without money. Just talking myself through that.
I'd be curious to know when that actually could be possible.
I don't know, because we've got a 2-year plan for me to launch myself as a coach. So does it come before?
Sounds like you're in the mix here, Elaine.
And I'd also be curious to know what could happen, sort of in a very general, huge, enormous sense, if you didn't do that.
Mm.
Was that you're referring to, Elaine?
That is
The trip.
just picking up and going, the trip,
Yeah.
doing it.
That's what was coming up for me.
Yeah.
I'm wondering now that we've been discussing it and Lorraine's been making it feel like something more realistic. How
Yeah.
would she feel if it didn't happen?
Mm.
Because I'm excited.
Yeah, me too.
Send you a postcard. I'm seeing that as actually that is possibly not the bike ride around the world itself, and could be, and that question of what's it going to be like if you don't do that is actually this thing, like I said before, of doing something different, that because we've said ever since we've been together that we want to live in a different way, whether it's in a commune, we don't want to be dependent on money, we want to be able to either build our own place or something. So there's too many things for us to discuss now, but that is a lot more flexible than the bike trip. And when you ask that question, it takes me to my, the obituary or the deathbed where, is there anything that you regretted? And not having had a go at doing this thing that's a little bit different, whether it be the bike ride, whether it be moving to the north of Spain and try to set ourselves up with something that we want to do together, or whatever it is, that doesn't feel too good.
Mm.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah.
I wonder how doing this would actually help her with her idea of launching a coaching business, in terms of modeling for people how to live out their dreams, or and just all the experiences that you and your family would have along the way that would be grist for the mill in coaching conversations. Like, oh yeah, that reminds me of the time I was biking through Germany and I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
Actually, what I saw a few minutes ago was just a beautiful niche.
Mm.
Yeah.
Like, there it is right there. Yeah, how many people are sitting home having that dream and need help.
Yeah.
So
I have a nice
an
feeling.
entirely different life.
If nothing else, it's just a great springboard. I mean, how many people are you going to meet while you're biking around the world or doing whatever you're doing?
Mm-hmm.
To be able to coach and talk to and gain experience from, rather than just your usual group of friends or whatever. You don't even have to look for a niche because you've already got it.
The other thing that's just occurring to me is this whole 1 year idea. The time frame is like, does it have to be a year? Like, does it look easier or more plausible if it's 3 months or 6 months? Or is there a way to dip your toe in without it? Because a 1 year commitment does seem more, there's more balls in the air with a 1 year commitment financially and otherwise than a shorter thing. Is that have you thought about other options maybe?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because actually that's something, as I say, Jules and I used to, if we go back to it being the biking thing, that's how we used to spend our summers, and we just have the bob trailer on the back, our tent, and just the two of us, and that was it, and off we'd go. And we'd always said that's what we want to do with the children. And now, actually, I mean, they're both able bike riders, so yeah, we could definitely do something shorter and not as long, to, like you say, dip the proverbial toe into that for sure in our summer. Yeah, thanks for reminding me of that, actually, because that's kind of been off that's so funny, because that's been off the radar. There's been something over the past few years that we talked about, and it's kind of been then forgotten about a little bit. We talked a lot about it in COVID because it seemed more feasible then. And one of them would have been attached to our bikes, but now, yeah, they're able to, and Carlo could potentially even take a pannier on the back of his as well. So yeah, it's that. Yeah, great suggestion. Thanks.
Well, our timer went off a second ago, so
Cool.
I mean, you already just gave a bit of a feedback, but in the next 2 to 3 minutes, maybe you can share any insights or shifts or things that are looking fresh and new for you.
That, yeah, definitely, like bouncing off that last one, that's fresh and new and something that we're talking about this summer. Like, how could we maybe do that? A bit of that with the children. How could we do that? How could we make that happen? Yeah, and then it's just allowed me to see again that, if I do have this big dream of doing something different, like it would be nice to start looking at how I could make something happen from that. And hearing that there's a niche for for that, and hearing your enthusiasm about things as well that I said was comforting, and it felt good and helped me to get that feeling too, which was already there. It kind of enhanced it. So yeah, it's good.
Cool.
Very cool. Yeah, I mean, this is I don't know if this is viable in terms of finances up, but like, so my brother and his wife, they just bought a property up north in Canada, and they're doing like homesteading, and they've got a cow and chicken, but they're documenting everything on Instagram, and they built a little bunkie and they're renting that out as an Airbnb, but they're making some money, not like when they were working, but it just occurs to me, like, this family trip around the world on bikes could be, sponsored by somebody, or, social mediaized, or I don't know, there's all kinds of things and ideas that you could kind of come up with around it. It may take away from it, so you may not want to do any of that. You may want to just enjoy it in private as a family, whatever. But it's occurring to me that there may be some opportunities there that you may not have thought about.
Yeah.
And then the charity, it's one of those things that screams of charity too. Like, a lot of people do things like huge walks or bike rides or runs and raise money for charity.
Yeah. Yeah, good ideas too. Yeah, well, it's nice even to just a great little game to have played, to then to rekindle this idea that has been like, under a pile of books for a while. So that's nice to have seen it again. Thanks for that.
Thanks for sharing.
Thanks for sharing.
Are you up for another go?
Absolutely. Well, I did want to say, while you're sharing the screen, also I liked that idea of imagine the number of people you would meet, because that would be great, so you can meet more people. I liked that share as well, Elaine.
So this is called It's All Connected. So player one shares how it is that they came to be here today playing this game.
Oh, cool.
And, for 10 minutes, player two picks something that from that story and asks how that came to be. Player one tells that story, and the process continues until the time is up. The other players listen for metaphors, language patterns, and feeling changes, and report what they observed at the end of the game. So an example would be like, so Lorraine, how did you come to be here today? And you'd say, well, Elaine invited me. And then it could be like, oh, well, how did you come to know Elaine? And it's just kind of tracing it back that way to see how everything's connected. Okay. Elaine, do you want to be person number two?
Yeah, could do. Yeah.
If Lynne or I are person number two.
Okay.
What do you think? I'll leave
You have to tell me the question again.
So you would ask,
how did you come here? Yeah.
How is it that you came to be here today?
Yeah.
And then from her answer, you would say, how was it that you came to be there? And
and so on.
Trace kind of the books backwards.
Just thinking, most of that. I don't know whether it would be more.
Yeah, it might be nice. Yeah, it would.
Sure. Do you want to be the questioner, Lynne?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. Do you need me to say the question again, or you're good?
No.
No, you're not good, or no, you want to say it again?
I'm good.
Okay, you're good. All right. And then I'll put the timer on for 10 minutes. All right.
So I just keep asking the same question over and over.
Yeah, you just keep peeling back the.
Okay, peeling back the layers. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. This is the first time we've done this one.
Elaine and I will observe and
Great. So I am intrigued, actually. Yeah. How is it that you came to be here today, Lorraine?
So I work with, apart from being a friend of Elaine, she's also my coach. And so in a coaching session, I was talking about wanting to feel like I need to be taking more action. I want to be, maybe I maybe I want to do another course. Maybe there's other things that I want to read. And then it came to Elaine's mind, we do these clarity games with Greg and Lynne, and we're always looking for guests. Would you be interested in coming? And I said yes.
Cool. And you said that Elaine's your friend and coach, but how did you meet her?
That's an interesting one. So this is now three years ago, possibly. No, 2 years ago. I was looking for a reflexologist. My brother had said to me that he'd had some reflexology for something, and he'd found it really useful and said, it might be quite useful for you. I was like, okay, that sounds good. I'll look for a reflexologist. And there's a girl at work who I work with called Raquel, who I thought she did shiatsu and things, so she probably would know somebody in the area that would know about reflexology. And anyway, then she gave me this lady's name, Elaine Coaching, and said, this is who I did my training with for shiatsu, but it seems like she's changed kind of track. She's doing something very different now. She's doing coaching. And at this point, I'd done a small amount of coaching over the summer, and I'd spoken to him again about my brother about coaching, and my ears kind of pricked up. I thought, oh, reflexology then had been forgotten of a word. And I had a look on Elaine's website and saw that she had this thing called Have a Coffee and a Chat, and I signed myself up, and the rest, as they say, is history.
And Raquel, I missed how you knew Raquel. Yeah, I heard your brother, but I didn't hear Raquel.
Yeah, Raquel's one of my work colleagues. So she's somebody,
okay.
and a friend I work with. Yeah.
Okay. And no connection with your brother? Just checking.
No. The
Okay.
connection with my brother was because he'd said about the reflexology, and also he had coaching before, when he then left his work and things after he'd had coaching.
Cool. And Raquel knew Elaine because she'd worked with her or had coaching from her, or reflexology, or how did that come about?
Yeah, so Elaine can correct me if I'm wrong, but they did shiatsu together, and I think she learned shiatsu from Elaine, or they learned it together, or they did a course together, or shiatsu and the pair of them together.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Not a single thing is coming up for me. Go, Greg.
Well, this isn't based on what you said necessarily, more how you said it, which is, I'm assuming you're not Italian, but you live in Italy. So I'm curious how it is you came to be in Italy.
Yeah. So during university, I did an Erasmus year, so a year studying abroad in the Erasmus program, which means, I don't know if you have it in North America. Do you Erasmus? No, because it's European.
Name doesn't sound familiar.
Okay, so it's a year studying abroad, so it replaces a year at my university in the UK, and it was done in Spain. And I just saw a total different way to living and loved it. And from that moment, said, right, when I leave university, I want to go and live in Spain. So went to live in Spain, taught English as a foreign language, and did a few other jobs. Came back to the UK, realized that I wanted to become a teacher, trained as a teacher, but I knew I didn't want to stay in the UK. So I looked straight. I did the qualification, which is a year, but then to get qualified teacher status, you have to teach for a year in the UK. So did that, but knew all the while that I wanted to go abroad again. Didn't want to go back to Spain, and wanted to go to a country where I would be able to learn the language, and it still wasn't too far away from home. And yeah, Italy kind of was there, as had jobs that I was interested in. I was interested in working for a school that teaches the International Baccalaureate through the PYP program, the Primary Years program. and two schools had job opportunities. I went to a job fair in London, and my options were either Modena on the east coast or Turin, and Turin being near the Alps, and a place called Valle d'Aosta that really seemed wonderful for cycling and snowboarding. That's where we chose to come to.
Mhm.
So it was for work, but the choice of Italy was due to it being a place where I could see that I could speak the language, and yeah, the idea was actually to stay for a couple of years and then go further afield, but that never happened. It's been 17 years now.
I'm not sure if this fits in with the game, Greg, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
Go ahead.
Because I'm really curious, what first sparked your interest in teaching?
That's interesting as well, because I remember being at college with my friends studying chemistry, and they were like, "You're going to end up being a teacher." And I said, "Absolutely, I have no patience. There's no way in the world I'm going to be a teacher." Going to Spain, it was kind of being very fortunate being an English speaker, and there was a need for for English teachers. It was kind of an easy option, I suppose. It was something that I saw as an option for me to be able to do. I enjoyed the teaching of doing that. I enjoyed the teaching of children, not so much of English itself, because I found it quite repetitive. And that's when I saw teaching kids. I was like, oh, this is really good fun. I like this, but I don't just want to teach English. I'd like to actually become a primary school teacher. So I think it was having the experience with the children, teaching them English, that was the thing that kind of sparked it.
Mm.
It's never the same. Every day is different. I like that.
I'm curious about your interest in doing a year of learning abroad. What sparked that?
That was probably heavily influenced, not probably, was heavily influenced by my brother. After he left university, went to the US and did VSO, and then he traveled with his work substantially. He's 7 years older than me, so he'd already left home and things, and had traveled a lot, and then met I'm thinking when I did my Erasmus year, they were together, but he wasn't living in Spain. So he'd met his now wife of 20 years, and she's Spanish. And so we traveled to, yeah, I must have, yeah, I've been to Spain a few times. And I think that of seeing him having traveled so much that it felt like it was a real possibility to do that. And I'd like to think the way that he spoke about it. So I think, yeah, he probably down to my brother, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Seems like your brother's been quite a big influence in your life.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Well, we lost our dad when I was 15, and he, being an older brother at different times when potentially dad would have been there helping make the decisions, he kind of took that role at different times.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember making the decision after leaving. Well, first of all, making the decision which A levels to take after GCSEs, so the college years before university. Those conversations were heavily influenced by my brother, and also like university choice as well. Heavily influenced in the way, discussed with. It wasn't just me and my mom. He was, a real figure in that. Yeah, and always has been, I'd say, and kind of still is. Yeah.
Going back to I wonder what your brother would say about your idea of biking around the world.
Oh, yeah. He'd say, when can I come with you? Avid cyclist as well, so he would definitely jump on board for some of it. I think he would be in big support of it. Yeah, he definitely would. I think also my mum would be, actually. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, my timer's about to beep, so I'm going to stop it 1 second early, so I don't have to listen to that noise. That was wonderful.
Yeah.
I guess first, Elaine and I, and even Lynne, we can talk about observations, and then we'll throw it over to you, Lorraine, to wrap it up with anything that struck you or any insights or anything new for you. Elaine, what struck you?
What struck me is, I think, how she got the bike and the snowboard in along this. That's the thread. That was the thread to me. That sounds like this kind of guiding force, you know. As long as there's a bike and a snowboard in it, it'll be fine. It doesn't really matter about the rest. That's what kind of struck me. And yet, sort of, it's beautifully structured, like in such a clear memory. You know, if somebody had been asking those questions to me, I'd have struggled to remember all of that kind of thing. And like, it really is beautifully connected, you know, and it seems still very fresh and clear in Lorraine's mind, and also seems, as I heard it, it was like there was no time factor involved. Like each moment that she spoke about sounded like it was still being lived right now, today, now in this moment. There was no hesitation, you know, like, oh, let me try to think now, when was that? Was that like last year? Was it it was just like, whoom. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it had a very, I don't know, smooth flow to it. Like it was just like natural kind of flow, and no tinge of regret or bad decisions or I wish I hadn't done that or anything. It was just like, you know, a nice, easy, almost like, you know, going down a lazy river of life. Kind of thing. And then just what I mentioned at the end there about her relationship with her brother, I thought was and the explanation of it was very touching. So that's what stood out to me.
Yeah.
I guess one of the things that came up for me was Lorraine's clear curiosity about other places. Like travel is important to her.
Yeah.
Seeing different things is important to her. And going back to the dream of the last conversation, I was sitting here thinking, well, that's not a surprise now. The curiosity is there.
And fun, I think, is another theme. Like even with the teaching, like what aspect of teaching would be fun?
Sort of, for me, a clear representation of you know, core values, like playing out, and where I've heard with other people and conversations and this kind of thing, how we get confused and mixed up, like with the job that you have. You know, you've got to do this job because like it's the job that is the most important thing, because you won't make the money and you won't do this. But like Lorraine is just so clear, like it's just so net, like, you know, okay, I've got to have a job because I've got to get some money, but I mean, it's not important. It's not so important that it would root me anywhere. You know, the important bit is the travel, the bike, the snowboard, and the big value of family as well. The sort of community thing there. Let's do this together.
What are you hearing?
I really felt a strong willingness to experience new things, newness, and some element of surprise, I think.
What did you take away from all that, Lorraine?
Oh, thank you so much. It's really interesting hearing that being said back to you, and things that you kind of go, well, of course it's like that. You're like, no. Sometimes you take things for granted, like you're saying that, you know, family is clearly a core value. Yeah, it is, and it's nice to hear that, because I think sometimes I just take for granted those things, and it's nice to hear that back, that I do really, and you know, a lot of the decisions I make are based around that, because it is so very dear to me. But it was interesting me hearing that and being, well, of course, but what do you mean, well, of course? No, Also, the memory thing as well is interesting about saying how it was so clear, everything. I was able to recount it kind of with flow, and yeah, I found that interesting hearing that back, because again, that was like, well, yeah, of course, it's my life, I know it, but maybe not, of course, maybe that isn't how everybody is able to. That's interesting to have heard that back.
Mm.
Something that I kind of put in there when I shared about when we came to Italy, and it's 17 years, and the intention when we came, or my strong intention, was that it would only be for 2 years, and then I really wanted for us to go, and at this point it was just me and Jules, to South America, specifically to Chile. And I'd been in touch with schools and things, and things changed and things happened, and it never came off. And I'm just listening to all this now, and you really picked up on the adventure and new places, and that's something that I do hold very dear. And I'm wondering if we have enough of that, or if I feel satisfied with the amount that we have of that. And it made me think back to that. Never did go to South America. I never did that. And is there any regret in there? And is it now a call for, okay, that never happened, and that's fine, but there are still possibilities for adventure and for new things and for exploration. And so, yeah, that's you've given me more food for thought. So, yeah, thanks for that.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was a lot of fun.
Fabulous.
It was, yeah.
Thanks for playing along. We'll see you next time on the Clarity Games.